Maja, bad news! What happened? We were attacked by Tyrannosaurus. Maja tried to climb a tree, but the Tyrannosaurus came too fast. Maja's adventure. Maja is taking a nap. He was huddled in a corner in his nest. The young Alphadon rarely left the nest. His older brother Kim always brought him food. So, accompanied by his cousin Zio, Kim went to find their favorite food. They really like red fruits. Finally, they found it at the top of the hill, across the river and in the woods. Suddenly, Zio came into the nest panting. Maja, bad news! He shouted. What happened? Maja asked, jumping up. We were attacked by Tyrannosaurus, said Zio. When he heard that word, Maja felt his fur tremble. Maja had never seen a Tyrannosaurus, but had heard of one. He knew that the Tyrannosaurus was huge. Its powerful tail strokes can knock down a tree. But most importantly, the Tyrannosaurus had a huge appetite. Where Kim? Maja is worried. He managed to hide in a tree before the Tyrannosaurus came to eat him, assured his cousin. After a long journey to the nest, Zio is exhausted. Someone has to go save Kim. Maja decided to leave. Outside the nest, everything seems calm. High in the sky, a pterodactyl flies in search of its prey. Maja told himself that he had to be careful if he didn't want to be preyed upon. Maja reached the river. The water is clear and rather deep. Maja wonders if he can swim. After all, he had never tried to swim. First, he put one foot in the water, then both, and finally, his whole body went into the water. This turned out to be fun, thought Maja. He steered his legs and advanced towards the other bank of the river. Suddenly, a gigantic shadow appeared above him. Maja quickened his pace, but he was still too far from the river bank. A very large pterodactyl had just sunk its beak into the river. Maja is lucky. Luckily, it wasn't he who the hunter wanted to devour, but a poor fish. Phew! Then, Maja came out of the water and breathed out while moving his body. In front of him, there were a large trees with dark leaves. He was afraid that there were bad monsters hiding there. Maja slipped and tried to hide behind every tree. Suddenly, he felt a shaking in the ground. The shaking was getting stronger and stronger. Those were the footsteps of a giant beast. Maja sure it's a Tyrannosaurus. Then he hid under the cliff. However, Maja was curious. He wanted to see the Tyrannosaur in person. Then he came out of hiding and came face to face with the biggest animal he had ever seen. Beside him, Maja felt so small. Hello, said the animal. Good morning, Sir Tyrannosaurus, Maja stammered. I'm not a Tyrannosaurus. I am a Diplodocus. Are you going to eat me? He asked. The Diplodocus laughed. Oh no, I only eat leaves. They are tastier and easier to get. Then the Diplodocus stretched its very long neck towards the treetops. He devoured a few leaves and said to Maja, You won? Maja replied that he wasn't hungry and wanted to sneak in between the trees. He's so calm, isn't he? Thought Maja. Finally, Maja arrived near a tree with red fruits. He looked at the base of the tree where his brother was hiding. However, there were no tyrannosaurs there.
Kim, I'm here. The Tyrannosaurus is gone. We can go home to our nest.
Kim sticks out his head. He was very surprised to see his brother. This is Maja's first adventure into the woods. The two alphadons then walk home. However, there is a monster waiting for them. Tyrannosaurus suddenly appeared. He stood in front of Maja and Kim. On a whim, he opened his mouth and tried to devour them. The two alphadons ran to avoid the Tyrannosaurus' sharp fangs. Maja tried to climb a tree, but the Tyrannosaurus came too fast. Even the Tyrannosaurus opened its huge jaws and was ready to devour him. But with a single blow of its tail, the Diplodocus knocked the Tyrannosaurus unconscious. "Don't bother my friend," said the Diplodocus. Maja and Kim were amazed.
Thank you very much,"
they said together. "I will take you to your homes," the Diplodocus offered. Maja and Kim accepted it. What an adventure! Imagine Zeus' surprise when he saw his cousins come home and perch on a head of a huge dinosaur.